Okay, so good morning, Melissa and Claudia. It's Friday morning, 1:08 a.m. And here's your weekly shiur, pre-Shabbat shiur. This one, and Bezat Hashem, will be 5 minutes, but I have, as usual, an incredible insight for you on things that I've been asking myself questions about for years, about Israel and the settling of Israel by the seculars. So I'm reading a book about that. It's called The Question of Redemption. And this book's written by one of the leaders of what's called religious Zionism, the settler movement. And he asks some very interesting questions and with some very good insights, very good answers. So the question in this chapter is, why would God bring redemption specifically through secular Jews? I mean, if you think about it, the settling of the land should be led by the observant, because they're the ones who've got the connection to the land and who obviously understand the importance of settling the land. So remember, I think I've told you this already, but basically the mitzvah of ascending to the land and settling the land and building the land is, according to majority opinions, deoraita from the Torah. And not only that, there are many statements in the Gemara which says that, for example, anybody who takes 4 steps on the land of Israel, all his or her sins are forgiven. And on top of that, it's as if they've performed the entire Torah. That's written in quite a few places, and so on and so forth. Okay, so there's a bit of a question mark about the Rambam, because when he lists the 613 mitzvot, the mitzvah to settle the land isn't listed. Although they say that it's the reason for that is it's one of the constant mitzvot. There is mitzvot that are constant, because we say it in Amidah all the time, and it's always in our thoughts that the Mashiach comes and we're going to settle the land. But so this was written by the grandson of Rabbi Shalop, who was one of the early. So he's the great-grandson of the Holy Gaon Rav Yaakov Moshe Shalop. And the guy who wrote this is Rav Yaakov Moshe Bergman. So these are great Talmidei Chachamim, and that's what he says. So he gives 2 reasons why specifically the seculars have settled, are settling the land. And then, by the way, he says that. And Melissa, you once told us a story with Rabbi Smith. My old friend Rabbi Smith. When you went to him and he spoke to you about each mitzvah being a separate mitzvah. So what they're saying that the mitzvah of settling the land is a separate mitzvah to, let's say, the mitzvah of keeping Shabbat. And although we know that not keeping Shabbat is a very serious problem because of the penalty, and we know how much settling the land is worth, the two compared to each other, only Hashem knows, So what the point that he makes, which is a very interesting point, and I never thought of it, the seculars are the one who are performing the mitzvah of settling the land with everything they've got. They're putting blood, sweat, and tears into this. They built the land. Not only that, they're prepared to sacrifice their children for the sake of the land and themselves. So they're doing that mitzvah with like it says, with all their heart and with all their possessions. So they're really, if you think of that pasuk in the Shema, they're really doing that. And then, of course, if you look at the other side, I'm ashamed to say, the religious, especially the Charedim, they are neglecting that mitzvah. And not only that, they're speaking Lashon Hara about the Jews that are performing that mitzvah to the best of their ability. Very interesting point that, And of course, the fact that they're not keeping Shabbat on the land of Israel is a problem, but the fact that they are building the land is a great Kiddush Hashem. So, That's a very interesting point. But now this is still not the point, okay? So I see I'm over 5 minutes, but it doesn't matter because I'm sure you're going to agree this is very interesting. So this is what Rabbi Waldenberg says this. So he says, so that was the one way of looking at it, but he says, according to this approach, this is Rabbi Waldenberg's two-pronged approach, this is his second approach, the secular Jews had to initiate the redemption because that is the only way we can be sure that Hashem caused it to happen. Had great Torah scholars established the state, one could have raised doubts as to whether this is truly the beginning of redemption. One could have argued that the religious Jews long to return to the land because of its sanctity and because of the mitzvot that depend on it. Some mitzvot you can only do in Israel. Nothing would have forced us to say that God wanted to create the Jewish state and initiate the ingathering of the exiles. Now, however, it's hard to deny the miraculous nature of these events. Who would have thought that people so removed from Judaism would give so much of themselves to establish a Jewish state? It's amazing, huh? So there we are. So he cites it as a proof as to why this Aliyah, this third Aliyah, this return from all over the world is actually divine, and it's actually God doing it, because the people least likely to do it are the ones who are doing it, and they're doing it the best. Okay, so there we are. It's a little bit over 5 minutes. It's just under 7 minutes. I wish you a Shabbat Shalom. I hope you enjoy it and you have a good time. And Bezrat Hashem, we'll be talking face to face soon. Shabbat Shalom.